Hello, everyone. Today on the Renderyard interviews, we're interviewing the director of the short film Stargirl, who is James Price. Hi, James. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Pretty good. I've been looking forward to speaking with you for quite a long time. Your short film on the Renderyard YouTube channel has been really successful in the almost 1 year period that it's been live. It's gained over 100,000 views, and it has regular daily comments, some actual arguments going on between viewers, which is always interesting, trying to analyze aspects of the film and giving their own kind of ideas. And then just obviously, other people who just giving their appreciation of the film and their enjoyment of watching it, and also asking more about what's coming next. So we thought we'd get you on and ask you directly.
Well, that's quite interesting. I didn't realize till the other day that it had 100,000 views in the.
Yeah, it's been doing well.
And I was quite surprised. Actually, a colleague of mine had said, "Oh, I had no idea you'd made that film." And
Okay.
looked it up, and he was like, "It's got 100,000 views on YouTube." And I was like, "Has it?"
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I know.
So I'm pretty speechless by that, actually.
You started Stargirl, I think, as a Kickstarter. Or GoFundMe. I'm not sure which platform.
Indiegogo it was.
Indiegogo, there's three. And what was your final kind of shooting budget?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it was about 8,000.
Well, okay, that's good. £8,000.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, but we didn't raise that much on Indiegogo. But that was sort of shooting and all in basically.
Yeah.
That with post and but with everything, when you're doing a short film, there's a lot of beg, borrow, and stealing and favors and
yes.
It's interesting. The film we'd made before, a few years before, which was Shell Shock, I think in the end cost 16. But we went to Japan making that, so that was kind of fun. 5 of us went off to Japan. And
brilliant.
It was sort of 3 separate shoots. We had a London shoot, which was the interiors for Japan. We had the Japan stuff, and then we had the flashback stuff, which we shot at 3 different periods of time. We were going to do the Japan stuff at the end. We ended up being the first stuff we shot. So that was kind of cool.
And I mean, it's a really interesting perspective that your first film creation was actually ended up being a feature film, and the short film Stargirl was the film you did next. So how did that kind of unfold? Did it begin as a smaller project and then turn into a feature?
It did. I mean, it started off Shell Shock as a short film, and it came. And I had never made a short film, and I've never worked on a short film. I worked in art departments for, like, this is my 20th year professionally TV and film this year, so I've got quite a bit of experience. And I'd got like, when was Shell Shock? 2005-7, I think. So I had no experience of making a short film, and I always are really impressed with people who can come up with a story in 60 seconds and tell it. And that to me is like the perfect short film. It's like a joke, a sketch, and then it's gone. Whereas I'm much more long form. And so it was coming out at this ridiculous length of whatever we did. There was so much in the film that everything I read is like, oh, the 40-minute mark, oh, it's dead. It's that time that nobody wants.
Right.
It may have changed now because of the streaming platforms, and you'll have an episode of your favorite show and it'll be an hour and a half, and then you'll have another episode right after and it's 30 minutes, and it's like,
I think 50 minutes is the sort of sweet spot. I am noticing that things on HBO can go slightly over an hour, and it's still viewed as an episode, and then the shortest thing will be 25 minutes possibly. I mean, Stargirl's length, I think, is is around
20,
12.
isn't it?
Yeah, 20. So you're under the threshold. It's
Yeah,
completely in the short film area. And how long was Shell Shock in the end?
it's 75 in the end, or 74,
Okay.
rather, with credits. And
Was
there's
was there a time where you decided through shooting, or did you know straight away we're going to make this into a feature when you sort of
um,
went through the script, or did you think we'll start as a short and then, oh, actually there's a lot more to explore here, we should expand this?
yeah, it was during the editing process, I think, that
Okay.
to me, that it was something. I'd started to look at people's first films that they'd made and lengths, and yeah, I just felt I wanted to. Maybe I fell in love a little bit too much with the characters, and thought,
Okay.
and also I was reading. I only ever get to do one film at that point, so I was like, actually, if I'm going to do this, then, because it is a huge amount of time and effort, and years
Yeah.
of just absolute throwing everything you've got into it, and it's grueling, and you think, oh my god, if we've come all this far, we've shot all this stuff, and I didn't want to really get rid of it. And there were some sort of thematic things that I wanted to try out from different perspectives, and so yeah, it sort of evolved really. And I don't know whether I would have known always deep down. I mean, I would have always wanted to make it as a long film, and it started off. There were different ideas that it may be. I was like, well, actually, I'll make it as a piece of animation if I have to,
Okay.
and I still never made any animation. And after several attempts of trying, I would love to one day do some animation. I thought Stargirl would quite be cool as an animated.
Yeah, that would have been very interesting.
And
It's
and we also have a spin-off that we wrote, but we've not really done much with, a 6-part, 30-minute version with just the Meteor Hunters. Joe Dempsey,
yeah,
Rob
yeah,
Whitelock's.
yeah, kind of alternative indie X-Files.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of indie X-Files meets Only Fools and Horses, basically.
Yeah.
And there's a whole backstory. We were going to call it Fallen Angels. Well, it
Okay.
is called Fallen Angels. I mean, it's not doing anything right now, but there's 6 scripts there which show this.
That would be good.
It's pretty. And I've co-written it with a friend of mine, Brian Ginnin, who's a massive, huge Doctor Who fan, and I
Okay.
mean, he could go on University Challenge for Doctor Who. It's ridiculous. And so it's this kind of, like, just like you say, X-Files meets Red Dwarf meets
Yeah.
Horses,
Yeah.
and they go around getting into adventures. And the Fallen Angels thing comes from, I think the American Air Force, what they call for things that they think are UFOs.
Ah, right.
It's their code.
Okay.
So
Okay. So you've basically you've been working in the art department sector of filmmaking for the last 20 years, presumably.
yeah.
What led you into the film industry? How did you follow that path?
I think it's kind of a long path. I was going to, when I left school, be a stonemason, and I had an apprenticeship lined up at 16, and it fell through at the last minute, and I ended up going to the local art. I grew up in the Herefordshire, where we shot Stargirl, and
Okay.
good art college there. And rather than do, like, literally 2 weeks before term, I went to art college and did a general art and design course instead of
Yeah.
A-levels, and that led me, without any real kind of, like, I was just really severely dyslexic, and I just wanted to try and do something creative. And
Yeah.
film industry back then didn't really exist in the 90s, early 90s especially. Things like Trainspotting hadn't come out, Shallow Grave was just about to break, so you
Right.
forget, like, how barren it was.
Yes.
I think during that year that I left school, Four Weddings, a Funeral came out, and then, so it wasn't really an option. And then I went to art college, Pulp Fiction happened, and blew me away. I think a lot of people, it changed. I remember going into college on the Monday after seeing it on the Friday night, and everything I'd been doing before made no sense anymore.
Right.
Still, so it's a progressive sort of thing happened. And then I went to university and did applied arts, which was contemporary designing and making. And during that period, somebody, I don't know exactly who, but people had started to, I mean, I'd always loved film and TV, don't get me wrong. It's always like my obsession. I'd watch a lot of film,
Yeah.
but it was never anything that I thought was an option. And then somebody started to mention, you know, set design, these things used to come up. And then Shane Meadows happened. I remember I don't know what his first film was with Bob Hoskins, can't remember now. That's like a guy from the Midlands. You're like, oh wow. And so and it felt quite appealing to have a job, a creative job where you get paid. You go days work. Whereas everything I was doing up until then, I was like making stuff, and then you've got to sell it, and then you're like, you know, there's so how does that work? And so, growing up with on a small little farm and like business, and so just having a business was just like, no, I don't want to do that. And then I came to London and tried getting in, did some work experience with a couple of different companies, which was really hard to get. I mean, I would knock on people's doors and just generally make a pain of myself, and eventually got some work experience, found I didn't have any of the right skills.
Yeah.
Someone switched me onto a course in Kingston, which doesn't exist anymore, for production design.
Okay.
And I was like, got myself on that course by skin of my teeth, and then through that I was able to get my first job. Again, I had to pay for my first job. I pretended that I lived in Wales and I didn't. And Cardiff and stuff.
Okay. So. And are there films that are series that you've worked on during your career that we'll recognize?
I mean, the last thing that I'm production designer now. I've just done the Ipcris Files remake for ITV.
Okay.
Designed that. I've done A Boy Called Christmas as a supervising art director. Paddington 2 I did. Way back when I did some spooks. I've done,
I remember that,
quite a lot of things over the years. I've done a film called The Nest with Sean Durking.
I think I've heard of it. Yeah.
Lead me back to how he got onto Stargirl, because I was telling Sean one day about this little idea I had for this farm, and he one day he just finds this blue alien on his
pixie.
Like, wow, I'd love to see that. That sounds cool. And I was like, I've not written it any more than that. It's just a germ of an idea. And he's like, you should just do it, man. And so I did. And then he's like, you got to make it, got to find a way to make it. And I was like, no, I'm not really sure about short films, and it's just, I just make it. And so it was kind of his encouragement. But,
so during that kind of path, before you got there, you'd gone to college, then you'd hustled to find work, you'd got experience, and then you'd landed some paid work, and slowly you're folding yourself into the industry. And quite early on, I think in 2009, you decide to what becomes your first feature film. How long was the gap between leaving college and kind of falling through the work environment? Did you get the bug, I will make my first film? How long do you think that time frame was?
I guess kind of always, maybe. I think I do remember trying to write a script when I was at university.
Right.
I'm never getting very far, or never knowing how to do it, or never really, and then sort of dropping it. And then I remember having had a book which was full of ideas, part ideas or not, but never really. So, and then I sort of had this misconception when I started art directing that maybe I wanted to create the whole world rather than just, and production designers do create the whole world, but they also don't, they create the world for the story to exist in. They don't just create a story that happens in the world. So it's
I understand. Yeah.
So I was like, I just want to do everything. I want to create a story.
I'll just make this universe.
I want to do all of it.
Right.
So that really appealed to me, and I spend a lot of time whenever anyone tried to offer me short films to design or whatever. I'm like, no, I want to do my own thing. I want to spend that energy because it's quite hard. I think it's getting easier because there's so much work now, but it
Mhm.
was always hard to sort of step the next level up in TV and film.
Yeah.
No one wants to take a chance on you until you've done it, and then so how do you do it? And that's why the short film sort of thing exists. And so I'd always resisted, and if anyone had offered me to design a short film, I'd go, oh, how about this person or that person? And I'd spend my energies trying to write and do that. And I'd actually written after Shell Shock and before Stargirl, I think there's like 3 or 4 feature scripts that I
Okay.
wrote, but never did any more with, or sort of got script reports done and sent them out for advice and rewrites and things like that. But also, I was interested in genre, which I think is now beginning to become acceptable in the UK. It's always been like a snobbery about if it's not like proper worthy stuff, you can't explore thematic and interesting story arcs with.
Yeah.
Americans don't seem to have that problem, and I think
Especially with well, it's a decade. It's 10 years. I remember when Iron Man came out, which was a long time ago,
yeah,
and that was the genesis of this insane Marvel universe. And I think that whole area of the film industry is now, as you say, unraveled, led to this acceptance of the genre. You step in, you create something, and then you can just unwrap it as far as you want to take
absolutely.
it. So I mean, how do you feel the industry is at the moment? Things, we've gone through the Harry Potter industry in the UK filmmaking. Now, I guess they're trying to spin off into the other area. I can't remember what it's called. But how do you feel the strength of the UK film industry is at the moment?
I also, just picking up another point quickly, I think Game of Thrones was quite a big game changer as well.
Yeah, in Ireland, and yeah,
they sucked people. It was very clever the way they sucked people in like this historical universe, and it didn't get super fantastical until everyone was like into the politics and then
dragons.
At the end of the first series, there was dragons, but everyone was in by that stage.
I know. Where are the dragons?
I mean, it's crazy busy, the film and TV over here at the moment. Like finding crew is really hard, or finding experience. I try within the art departments that I work in, get new people in all the time. Each job we try and do work experience with people, and just try and get us, help get people in. But it's sort of almost like 10 years too late. Everybody should have been doing it a bit earlier, because there's so much people getting of experience, because it takes to get fully really good at like anything, it's sort of 10 years before you have that knowledge of
the slow saturation, the daily grind, and you learn on the job. And if you're not in the job, you're behind.
Absolutely. And it's not out of being keen, or it's just there's things that you do that were a problem last time that you just you've seen it all. I know that you haven't seen the exact same things, everything's different, but you know what's coming. You know how to circumvent that, or get around it, or deal with there's a lot of politics involved in just not in a kind of like, because actually it's so facing making a film or a TV show that you have to deliver every day. So there's stuff to do, but there's also every department has different pressures and constraints, and making films actually has made me, and directing and seeing it from the different, I know what a sound department needs in a set, I know how something's going to be lit, or I know where the problem is for the locations with the where they put the catering, and just seen it all by of making films. So it gives me a
Yes.
grounding. So when I'm makes me a better production designer, makes me better, you know, in my day job. And so it's kind of good to have that overall grounding. And I think short films are good for that. I would
Yeah.
say there's an argument for not necessarily going to university, spending all that
No,
money.
yep. Don't get into debt and try and go the opposite direction. I mean, I went to college, I did fine arts. A very similar story to you. Grew up in the countryside in Cumbria, near the Lake District. A lot of people were like, "Oh, don't do art. You're not going to get a job." They were right. But I loved it. I loved it when I was there. And then as I came out of that environment, I was like, yeah, the world doesn't really work this way, does it? Damn, I've got to reinvent myself. And then spent like 3 or 4 years understanding the world of work. And then once I got an idea of how that works, started to pull the creative aspects back into that, how to fold that back in. And it's difficult. I think half of college should train people for well, actually, you do need this thing called money, and you do need to think about how you're going to make it.
Yeah.
And it's just something I think that seems to be missing.
I couldn't agree more that I come out of college uni the first time, and I was just like, thought that some Italian design house was gonna just
Yeah, of
pick me
course.
up. That's just what I believed. It's like, wow, I'm gonna be in Milan designing furniture.
Where when you sort of see how your short film has performed, and obviously your feature film, where do you believe that you would want to go next with your filmmaking?
That's a good question, and I'm gonna have to read some of the comments that are on the on
Yeah,
YouTube. Actually, I haven't dived into that, but
I think they all want a follow-up pretty much, or some kind of extension.
wow, that's very interesting. Well, we have been working on it. COVID kind of parked it a little bit, and life stuff got in the way. But
Oh
I
yes.
will maybe relook at the. I would like to do something. So, if we were to do, say, something like the Fallen Angels, I would probably pitch it to a Netflix or somebody like that to do it justice. Really, I think to
Of course.
take it to the kind of next level. I've got several. I mean, I think I mentioned I'm really keen
Yeah.
to do before I hang up my shoes, do something in animation, whether that's design the animation or direct an animation. I would really love to do that.
Do you have an idea of what genre of animation? Would it be CGI, hand-drawn, claymation?
Probably be. I really love. Who doesn't like the Studio Ghibli style of animation? But I think there's this amazing piece of software called Blender. I don't know if you're familiar
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
They also have this tool called Grease Pencil, which
Okay.
gives you a kind of hand-drawn feel, but you can build it all previously in 3D. And some of the concept guys I work with and I did a trial. We were looking to. There's my cousin's got an amazing archive of veterans from the Second World War and interview archive that he was he was a hospice nurse, and he was
Okay.
commissioned by someone in Herefordshire to go around and interview these guys before they died. And he's got an amazing archive of stories, and we started trying to develop an idea based on this guy who had been a German soldier, and he was been a POW and coming over here and living, but he had this amazing story. And we started working because we concept a lot in Blender for our production line, and we came up with this it's about 30, 60 seconds maybe, start of this idea for this story where he narrates over it, and we would, and I think it's beautiful, but we couldn't get the funding. My
Okay.
could get the funding, and then it got pulled. So that's I'd love to do that, but getting back to story, so I would probably look at doing it with Blender.
Okay.
I would think, but it would have a more of a traditional feel rather than and it's just so versatile. And anyone who is interested in getting into VFX or animation or gaming design or something, check out Blender. It's free. It's like amazing, and it works very well with Unreal and all that sort of stuff. So I can't recommend it enough. And even just making still images, it's beautiful. You create things.
Yeah, I've followed the kind of trajectory of computer technology and animation in films for a long time, and the recent Unreal Engine is mind-blowing. Just the level of detail, even for human characterization for faces, which is one of the hardest things to do, or hair. It's like I can just tell that this is not real, but man, it's from if you just glance, you think the person's real.
Yeah,
I haven't quite got the skin pores texture. I think that's like close up when you can look at the detail of the skin. But we're getting to the stage where it's kind of scary, where the world of acting is definitely going to flip on its head. And I think obviously voices are going to be always the most important characteristic in animation, or one of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the human element is something that might not be required as much. So
yeah, it would be. But I mean, one of the great things about directing live action is, and especially when you've written dialogue yourself, is hearing that brought to life, and you can't control what they do. The actors, that you can dress them up, you can give them the lines, and you can kind of direct them in the space, but the fact that you don't have to manipulate every single detail or nuance, and it's kind of the first time you hear dialogue you've written brought to life, I would just this massive grin on your face and laughing. Probably giving the actors massive insecurity, because you're just like, what is he laughing at?
Why is he laughing?
And you're just like, it's nothing you've done. It's just
you brought my character to life.
It just existed in your head, and that's what live action has. And the collaborative nature of the more people you have involved, the better things get. I think it's so beautiful just having an idea and then seeing people run with it, and just.
Have you watched Scanner Darkly with I can't remember the name of the director. Keanu Reeves is the main character. It's all rotoscoped, so the whole film was shot in as a film, live action with a camera.
Oh yeah, I have seen that. It's a few.
Right? Yeah, and then they digitally painted over every frame, and it's probably very different to what you're visually putting forward for your next film, but just the development behind that, if you get a chance to watch the behind the scenes and how it was all created, it's brilliant.
I remember watching it while we were doing Shell Shock, actually. I think it was James, the editor, was like, we could do something. Have you seen this? We could do something. The whole thing, because it was very much, that style was very much inspired by Japanese kind of manga, and
that's right. Akira and Ghost in the Shell.
Exactly, which inspired The Matrix massively. You can see that.
Yeah.
But all the things that I would do, getting back to that, is definitely genre. It's like, I've written westerns, I've written female westerns, I've written space stuff.
Well, that'll be Westworld, pretty much.
A great show to work on. It's kind of like everything you want. Western and sci-fi at the same
Yeah,
time.
and then we'll just bring it into like the future just to kind of tick all the boxes as
Yeah,
well. Yeah.
exactly.
I know I didn't even realize there was a new season coming out. I was like, what? What?
Yeah.
Season 4? Season 4 trailer? It's like, oh my god, when is this? So, have you been a sci-fi kind of fan for a long time, or was it just an area that suited the script?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go, I'm like an uber geek on it, but
Yeah, yeah.
I do love sci-fi. So I wouldn't want to be tested on on my sci-fi
No,
knowledge.
I know.
But I mean, you don't grow up in the 80s, being born in
Of course.
1957 without Star Wars casting a long shadow on your childhood.
Of
And
course, yeah.
um,
I
you know,
still remember seeing Empire Strikes Back at the
oh, gee,
cinema.
wow,
Yeah,
yeah, Return of the Jedi was me. I don't remember Empire Strikes Back. You may be a
yeah,
little
yeah,
couple
yeah.
years older than me then,
The,
because I
the
don't
the darkest one of the trilogy, and I'm like
start off with.
5 or 6 or something. Should have
Yeah,
like parents were a bit crazy. It's for their love that I became such a film fan. Dragged
yeah.
to the cinema to see films that were way too inappropriate for my
Oh, I
age.
know. Brilliant. I mean,
God, I saw Jaws.
did
Can you
you?
imagine that? I don't know what age I was when I saw that. And um, Raiders of Lost Ark. That was it. I was hooked after that.
Yeah, Raiders of Lost
Yeah.
Ark.
Every Steven Spielberg sort of film, really.
Yeah.
Pretty much. The good
Right.
and the bad.
I still love Flight of the Navigator. I never forget when I watched that one. I
Yeah,
thought
that
that
was amazing.
was
Yeah.
so good compared to, I would like that more than ET. I just like, which is like controversial, but everyone's like, it's so
The
amazing.
film that blew my mind, like in a big way, was The Abyss by James Cameron. And I saw it on an afternoon. There's probably about 15 people in the cinema like the Odeon in Newcastle or something. I think I was supposed to be at work and I was skiving, and I was like, I can't be walking around. Someone's gonna see me. I'll go to cinema. Oh yeah, someone told me that was good. This guy who was American who I'd been talking to, he'd seen it in America. I had no idea what it was, and I think The Abyss came out at the same time Batman, the original Batman, with Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton,
And I think I'd seen that like 2 or 3 times. I was like, okay, this Abyss thing, I have no idea what this is. Went in and just was like, oh my God, that's it.
Right, the bit Abyss.
I'm either going to make films or I'm going to somehow be involved in them. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
That was it. So, I mean, you basically you filmed in Herefordshire, and one question I did have for myself was the location of the farm. Was that somebody you knew? Was it your family, or how did you manage to sort of wrangle an entire farm?
My uncle's farm.
Right.
So it was, written. I knew where the scenes were going to take place as I wrote it. So I knew where he was going to meet her. I knew that he was going to be feeding sheep on that field. I mean, the tractor, which died now. Actually, my uncle died as well. But it's I knew. I mean, that tractor I drove as a kid when Dad used to borrow that, and we used to do the signage in, or I'd go and So I've driven on that tractor many times.
Were you driving the tractor in the scenes, or was Alan the actor?
Andrew Price, no relation. It was unbelievable because I always wanted to do a kind of western set in that part of the world, the Welsh marches called the marches, and there's a particular way you speak, there's a particular humour, and first of all, I actually, sorry Andrew if you watch this, I actually asked Paul Whitehouse to play and for a brief minute he read the script and considered it, and it never happened. Which is a great shame because I think Paul Whitehouse is amazing and should do more serious stuff because he's just genius. But I started looking into who could play the role of Stan, who's named after my friend's dad.
Okay.
And he, um, I just started researching Welsh actors because I was like, well, I'd rather it be a Welsh actor. And there was a couple of guys, one guy that was in Twin Town, which is a very funny film from the 90s.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, brilliant.
Called The Welsh Trainspotting, but it's not The Welsh Trainspotting.
It's not the Welsh Trainspotting, no.
But it's really funny. And so I was like, I wanted someone with an authentic accent that knew. And then I found this guy called Andrew Price who was from Herefordshire. So I started so I said to the cat, I've forgotten her name now, Maddie, I think, who did the casting, can you approach this guy? And I saw he was younger than I thought. I wanted Stan to be a good bit older than
like a weathered farmer, haggled.
Yeah, way bit older, but he grew up on a farm like me. He'd been and he'd gone to London. He started acting. He was he was just on the. I was like, well, because of his authenticity, I'll go with him.
Okay,
because he had the accent right. He had the humor. He was able to jump in a tractor and drive it. He was able to, he did what he knew what to do when you're feeding sheep. He knew what he did. He just knew how to inhabit that thing.
Because his mannerisms are absolutely spot on. And then it wasn't until I watched the interview with him, I was like, oh, he grew up on a farm, because he looks like a complete natural.
Yeah, I mean, he was just, so you don't have to worry about him. He just, and it was joy, really. And then the costume was pretty much, some of it was my old granddad's jumper and my stepdad's thing. So the costume, because quite often things for me that people get wrong are and it's really hard to age a costume. It takes, like, when you see these big films and they're aging properly, there are hundreds of people aging these costumes.
Yeah, you need to get the wax off the Barber jacket, which doesn't just happen easily. It's happened with years of weathering. So
it's super difficult. So I was really happy with the authenticity of that, and everything in the farm was just as it was. So we did a couple of little tweaks, but I wanted that bit to feel, and it's kind of mad, and it's just such a beautiful place. It's sort of a love letter to growing up on a farm, and
the opening scene is very reminiscent of the that 5-6 a.m. sun's just starting to come up.
I was really keen to shoot it as well at that time of year because I didn't want the leaves. It's too pretty, and I wanted it to feel kind of like you'd feel the road. And they were just about to start lambing, and so it was a very finite window. It had to happen. My wife was working on a film, and it was like we just got 2 young girls that I was looking after, my daughters, and so I was like, we have to do this in this window. And we actually lost the person who was playing Stargirl because of it, and then we found someone else, and then so basically I sort of lost my thing. One little thing that was happening, I said to Uncle Richard, "Oh yeah, I'm going to need lights on the tractor," and he's like, "Oh, the lights don't work." He's like, "They haven't worked for ages." And in fact, there was no window. And I don't know if you know, and I love the fact him and Dad were like fixing it on the morning. One of the lights is square and one of the lights is round. I don't know if you noticed.
Haven't noticed. Yeah, I do notice the square, but not the round one.
And the other one's round, and it's so beautiful because I like it. You'd have planned that, but the way he drove it, he hadn't driven a tractor for a while, and he was like, "Oh, I'll just give it a go." And Dad was giving him a bit of a refresher course, but like to drive that in, bring the thing in off the yard into the bay, drop the thing down, and
I had to put
her in it as well.
Was she actually in it as he was doing that?
And
really?
And that's a good
danger money.
Short films, you kind of.
How did you find the actress who plays Voyager?
So we found her through. I had a casting agent Maddie, and she found her basically. Yeah, Christina.
Christiana, I think
Yeah,
she's called.
Christiana. Yeah,
Christiana.
Christina, basically.
Christine.
It's
Chris.
the Irish version of,
Okay.
and so yeah, she came to this lovely person, and we were very blessed that she was up for doing it and being in makeup for
Yeah.
4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, I mean, she had a head cast, which is something that I don't think I could ever go through.
Um,
How did she know she was going to have a head cast, or
yeah, we talked about it, that she'd need to be head cast and that she'd be out in the freezing cold with very little on, and like, her background was modeling, so I think
okay?
probably as you have experienced with it.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
going to dress you in nothing, and you're going to stand around for hours. Yeah,
and so he
that's it.
kind of was okay about that, but I mean the blue didn't come off very well, and actually we shot the blue the first day and half the second day or something. No, half the first day and the second day, and then the next day was when she's in a disguise. And I remember Christina sending me this video of like when everyone had gone home, and she's like, "We're still cleaning this stuff off." Message on the phone. I was like, "Oh, we're
Oh
all
my
sorry,"
God.
but that just reminds me of something else that happened. I'll tell you now in a second.
Sure.
And if you look the next when she meets Liz, and she's like, he stands saying, "Oh, she's my
I noticed a blue line across
yeah."
her
It couldn't come off.
shoulder collarbone, but I thought that was quite cool
And no, well,
because
that's
I
what.
was like, "Oh, there's a hint that
Yeah,
something's not quite right here,"
yeah. Well, we hadn't planned that, and it
but it
happened. So
wasn't planned.
yeah,
No, just
then it
wouldn't come
happened.
off.
Then when we realised, we were like, "Oh, this is cool. Let's
Yeah,
do it."
yeah, 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 yeah. It's like the hidden camouflage.
Yeah, but
So she basically in the film she tries to kind of help Stan overcome what I guess he's probably got as cancer, I'm assuming, and kind of just gracefully lets him pass away. But is it the kind of life force that she's taking, or
yeah, she's taken his soul
his
basically.
soul? Okay.
Yeah.
And does that allow her to transform into his actual shape, his being?
Yeah, of course it does.
Oh, I see. So my final question is, the two guys, I can't remember their names, the two guys who are looking for the meteor, has she taken over them, or are they just like, oh, cool, she's an alien, right, we're just gonna follow her?
Well, the idea is that she's taken him up to see where the, because he's like, "Do you want to?"
As Stan, yeah,
Stand to go up and see where the meteor hit,
got
and
it.
you know what happens after that is
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, in a series.
as unknown. The thing I was going to say is, I remember waking up, and I very rarely get stomach upsets, but the night I'd gone up home the night before everyone else turned up, or the weekend before, to kind of get everything ready.
Mhm.
And I woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning with stomach cramps, and I don't know what happened, but I had a sickness bug. I was lay on the floor at 5 o'clock in the bathroom,
God.
thinking, I can't do this. I'm going to have to cancel everybody. And then I was
Oh
like,
my God.
everybody
Yeah,
is.
I know.
And that first day, I was just in bits. I could not. What was all I could do to just survive? So the fact,
Just point at things. Go
so
there. Do this.
that, and the first thing we shot was all of the stuff with the feeding and all of that. So because we were
Yeah.
trying to keep it in story order as much as possible. So the fact that Andrew knew how to do all that, cut a bail, just meant that I didn't. And Barney, who shot, did the camera work, was brilliant, and we had a really good professional. Like the guys that were doing it were just amazing. The crew were all they were either people I knew or the people I didn't know, were very experienced, and like I said, looking to step up. The guy who was doing the first AD, I believe that he first ADs now all the time, and he was brilliant. And we were super lucky. And when you get a crew that know what they're doing, then
Mhm.
don't have to really, they just
Yeah, no, I forgot what it's called. The photography, director of photography.
director probably, yeah.
Yeah, is brilliant. It's really, really good. And I often wonder, I mean, the film was made in 2017, I think.
I think we shot it in 2015.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it usually takes a couple of years.
How was the editing process? Was it fast, slow? Did you work on it at the weekends? Or?
Yeah, my friend James is an editor, and I kind of borrowed all my favors with him with the shell shock thing, which took a couple of years. We'd do it,
Yes.
he's got a family and he's a full-time editor, and they do it at
Yep.
weekends, and then actually the special effects that were involved took a bit of
meteor.
Yeah, the meteors and
Ray of life force.
and all of that took a little bit of time to get right. The music was the easiest. I was looking for somebody the guy who did the shell shot was a brilliant musician who but then gave it all up, and now is up in Scotland. And he recommended someone that he taught when he was teaching in London, and then he sort of sent me a few tracks from people he was teaching. And this one guy just had this track that was at the end, and I was like, that's it. I was just just listen to these things and tell me if there's any particular style that you want, and we'll score something for you. I listened to this track and I was like, well, that's it. I don't need anything scored. That's the one.
Perfect.
And so it was so perfect. So, but like everything, it takes a little while, and then everyone gets a little bit. And if you're not hurrying it on as the kind of director, and your life gets busy, then everyone else's life's busy. So it sort of stops and starts, and because there's such a big effort to get it in the can, as it were, that takes up so much time and effort. And then after that, you've still got this other hurdle.
You have to cut the film out of everything that you just shot.
And then the sound is also really difficult always, because then you the sound and this, and that's the thing that always amazes me, how long time consuming. And just I was lucky to find a guy who'd through the sound engineers who'd been to film school. We went and did the final mix at the film school's dubbing theatre there, which is like brilliant. It's like we played it on the big screen, and he did it all in an afternoon. And but it's taken ages to build up to do the final mix is the final bit of all of that kind of, and then the grading, of course, we had to beg, borrow and steal to do the grading. Barney managed to get over a couple of times, so you can kind of do it all in your bedroom, but then there's these times where you have to do the final stuff that you have to go to a facility, and of course they're so busy and everyone is working flat out on their day jobs now. Find time, and then to get that what you want, the proper quality you want, is hard unless you can pay for the money to slot it in. But that's it. Yeah, and then it sort of breaks the ideological thing of like, well, no crew get paid. I mean, initially I started it going like, we'll pay all the crew a minimal amount, and it'll be very kind of like, because everyone should get paid a little bit. And of course, we didn't get raised enough for that. So then that's like, I was like to Manny, well, what should we do? Should we give all the money back that people are giving us? And he's like, I was like, because it's not within the, I like written a dogma for like going forward of the films that we want to do now. And already we fall down and on like first thing is like, we haven't raised enough money to pay the crew. So what do we do? And he's like, no, everyone will, people are not doing it for the money, James. If you're going to give them 50 quid, like that's more in your, it's more about you than it is about what they're doing. If they're going to come and do it for expenses, they're not, the 50 quid's not going to make any difference to them. You know what I mean? So it's like, once I got my head around that, it's like, fine. I sort of like wanted us to be a bit more professional than we've been before. You know, it's like, well, we've done all these favors, that you've had all these favors this time. It's like, well,
Yeah,
it's
I
still
mean, so something that has occurred through the distribution of your film that has been really beneficial for the film reaching the audience that it has is so your film is available on Amazon. It's available on Tubi, if you're familiar with that. Tubi.
I had to look up Tubi or
Tubi is like a big American platform. YouTube, and then lots of other places. But basically, Amazon were taking on short films for a number of years, and unfortunately, they a year ago decided to stop taking short films. But all the films that had made it through to Amazon and Amazon Prime before the cutoff didn't seem to be affected, and so your film was, now if films are brought to us now that are short films, we're having to navigate a new way of finding distribution for these films, because unfortunately, I'm not sure, but I think Tubi also. I mean, I was amazed. So Tubi's a feature film platform, and like Stargirl comes on. I'm like, what? Have they made a mistake? I'm not. I won't say anything. And
right.
And I'm like, it's 20 minutes long. How the heck did this get up there? And then I noticed there were other shots up there as well, in the same kind of time frame, half an hour, 20 minutes. And so basically, I mean, your audience is divided between YouTube and Tubi. So you're covering this massive, and Amazon as well. So you're covering, all the kind of pillars really. And I think what also may have helped your film was there was a massive Marvel series called Stargirl that came out as we went live on YouTube and released your film on Amazon. And so I think that definitely was probably a driving force. People were just searching Stargirl, finding Stargirl, your Stargirl, before Stargirl Marvel was released, and just going, oh, what's this? I'm watching it. It's so, all very, happy timing, lucky coincidences.
It's interesting, actually, when we were naming it, it's inspired by Starman, the Jeff Bridges film.
Yeah.
The 70s, mid-70s, maybe.
Yeah.
Great. We'll go and watch it.
John Carpenter.
It's just lovely. Jeff Bridges been amazing. And so I was like, well, we'll call it that because, and I Googled at the time. I was like, well, is there any other films called Stargirl or anything on the internet? And it was so, like, because before you released it, we'd started making it we started raising the money in 2014, I guess. There was nothing. There was this comic called this Marvel comic called Stargirl, but there was no talk of it being made into a TV. That, like them adapting it for the screen. And the Marvel universe was still relatively small back then.
Iron Man, pretty much.
So I was like, well, it's not one of the comics I know from Marvel, but will be. I didn't even think really. And then I saw as it was coming out that there's this. Then when we released it put it on IMDb, it's like, oh, there's another thing called Star Wars.
Another multi-million-dollar production.
Oh shit! Marvel have now probably going to get sued by Marvel.
So it's been fantastic, and so for any filmmakers out there, if you can find the name of a film, well, I wanted to just get you on today and go in more in depth into how you create Stargirl and more about yourself just as a director. It's been awesome. It's been really good to just ask you all these questions and get more of an insight into what it takes to make a film. It's always incredibly difficult. Everyone I speak to, no one's ever said, it was easy. Everything worked and it was no problem.
Yeah,
isn't the way.
I wish I just painted.
Yeah, should have stuck to art.
For painting. Yeah, it's terribly. And also through the designing and art directing, the more that I spend time with relatively or really successful directors,
Yeah,
you realise that it just doesn't get any easier. They never want to make the film. The studios never want to give them the money to make the film they want. Like, it's just because it's a business at the end of the day, and
yeah, it's a battle.
and it's a battle, and it is so hard to do it. And like anybody, I don't know who it was, it said, but nobody sets out to make a bad film. So like anybody that makes any film or gets anything finished should be commended. And if you don't like it, then like just don't like it, but don't slag it off, because
Exactly.
just
Yes.
say, well done for doing it. If that's all you can say is just like fair play for you giving it a go. It takes so much just blinkered belief and self-belief.
Dogged determination.
And there's always, like, just before you're about to shoot, things start falling apart. And I'm reasonably chilled, but that's
Yeah.
just like start, and you become irrational. It's just like, oh my god,
It's happening for a reason. I'm not meant to make it. Why is it doing this now? Well, on that note, I will let you go. And just thank you very much. And is there anywhere that you would like to send your audience, your fans? Do you have a website, a blog? Anything you want people to see, apart from obviously watching Stargirl on YouTube?
Yeah, Stargirl on YouTube would be great. And if you're interested in seeing more, please note it there, and I'll read it. And
yeah, I mean, James is basically going to use that area as the kind of catchment point for all ideas and correspondence moving forward. So you never know, you might actually leave some influence in what he decides to do next.
Yeah, we do have a website, but it hasn't been updated in a long time. So it's pixiefilms.co.uk. But yeah,
there you go.
Would be lovely to see. And I will read some of the nice, and I'm sure
there's some excellent arguments in there, so it's really good. All right, well, thank you very much for your time, James, and take care.
Lovely to speak to you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, mate. Bye-bye. Bye. If you would like to submit your film to Renderyard for distribution, please go to our website at www.renderyard.com, click the Submit Film tab, enter your film details, and we will review your film and get back to you.